obviously what was done to end it. What about the play of the offensive line on that drive being indicative of what they've done, even with Jake out the first couple games?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of growth that we have seen in terms of where we would like to be with consistency, the ability to play well through the first 8 quarters of the football season on the offensive line. And, again, I think those are all positives because you do lose a guy like Jake, and Jake was playing really well in fall camp. And I think there's a lot of credit there to Grant Triber, and then I would equally say the credit to Trevor Downing. What we've asked Trevor to do to move inside to play center. I know he did it in the bowl game a year ago, but I really think that's anchored us in a lot of ways. That guy is the quarterback of the offensive line. From a strategic standpoint, he's doing a lot of things for us, as well as from snap the ball and have to handle. Even on Saturday, you had to handle the crowd noise. You had to handle all those things. I thought he did a phenomenal job. So I think he's been a great leader. Coach Myers and that group, they've done a phenomenal job. And, we're going to continue to see their growth is going to be critical for us to be the team we would like to be as the season continues on. And, I think so far so good, and certainly really proud of what that group has done.
So Colby had a really big game on Saturday in terms of, 2 quarterback hurries, 1 interception. What have you seen from him since he's transferred that's made him so successful already? Well,
he has an elite process to himself. I think then in that there's a reason, you got a brother that's playing the National Football League. His dad played in the National Football League. I think there were great traits early in his life. He's a veteran football player, so he's already played a lot of football and meaningful snaps. Comes to us as a great player from Delaware. So I think his own process, and I talk a lot about Xavier, how he practices, how he goes about his day-to-day operation. Colby's really the same way, and I think we saw that his winter workouts. He was a star in winter workouts, and then you saw spring practice and how he handled spring practice and fall camp. So to me, what you're seeing now is really what his own process has led him to be able to be. But what he did Saturday was fantastic. As good of a performance that we've seen in terms of what we asked him to do was not just play Sam linebacker. He was playing Mike. He was playing Will. He was playing Sam. At times he played defensive end. There were a lot of things we asked him to do throughout the football game, and that's a credit to him to be ready, but played a phenomenal football game for us.
Sometimes I think that I don't want to say neglect the offensive line. When stuff's not going good, we're very quick to blame the offensive line. When the offense isn't moving well, if we're not going to blame the offensive line, we're going to blame Tom Manning. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I just think, being in the roles of all those people, being the O-line coach, being the offensive coordinator, obviously being the head coach, I think people they're attracted, number one, to offense. I think that's just the nature of the beast. Obviously, offense scores points or doesn't score points one way or another. And so I think the emphasis at times from a fan base or from somebody trying to critique the game that maybe doesn't have all the knowledge to critique it, instantly you're going towards what's happening with the football. And, I think from that standpoint, there is reality. The better your offensive line plays, usually the better you play, and all those things. But, I just think that's the nature of the beast, and I think that's why it's really hard to play offensive line. You don't get a lot of notoriety. I've always said this in the recruiting process. Offensive lineman is, it's a one position. It's really hard to play because it's like long snapper. It's like playing kicker. It's like playing punter. You don't notice them until something good or bad happens, and usually when something good happens, it just kind of flies by the wayside, and you expect those good things to happen. So I think, again, that's why there's got to be a real strong mental toughness to play those positions and to be the offensive coordinator or the head coach and all those other things.
Who was better during that 99-yard drive, the offensive line or Tom?
Yeah,
or you, because I know you've got a little bit of input on plays.
No, I think a collective effort. I think the one thing you would just say in general offensively, I thought really a masterful Saturday by that group. I thought the game plan was outstanding. If we don't have some of the inefficiencies of turning the ball over down in the red zone, you're really driving the ball with great efficiency the entire game. And I thought the collection in the moment in that 99-yard drive, obviously starts with a great plan, and I thought the plan was outstanding. Number two, it starts with great execution, and so a lot of credit goes to our kids. The offensive line, Hunter, X makes some big plays, Gyrel makes big plays, and I think our staff has traditionally done a phenomenal job of putting our kids in great position to be successful.
So what was the play calling during that drive? Is Tom calling those plays and they're going through you and you can change? And if so, at what point did you say, I'm just getting out of this and letting them go?
Yeah, I think Tom has really done a phenomenal job, and I think for the most part, man, he is putting us in the best position, play in and play out for us to be successful. And so, a lot of my work and continued work always happens, throughout the week, in really all phases of it, and try to help us kind of navigate how do you win the football game. And there's times in the game where I feel like, there's some things that maybe I see or can interject that can be advantageous to the team. And, I still like that part of being a head football coach. And there is a chess match within the game. And, how can I help guide that the best way for the team to be successful?
How would you describe Jared Russ's progression through your program?
Yeah, I probably use the word transformational. I think he has totally transformed his body, his mindset, who he was to who he's become. Probably one of the great leaders right now in our program. And, you're talking about a guy that came in, he walked on to play linebacker. Then all of a sudden, I think we saw this big physical body that, we had just lost Sam Buckner, and we were kind of looking for, man, is there a guy that fits that mold? And Jared was the guy we kind of went to, and, it's like opportunity. And, man, that guy took advantage of his opportunity when it came his way, and just has been incredible. Jared had surgery this offseason, got hurt in spring practice. I'll be really honest with you. I don't know if we knew he would be available for the start of the season, and it was hard because of his senior year, what it meant to him. And, man, for that guy, I think he played 45 plays on Saturday, as physical and violent as maybe anybody on the football field. And, for that guy to do that, he's one of those guys that's transformed himself, but along the way, I think as a leader is transforming our football team, he's the mainstay in that room right now. And I still think that group is evolving, with Hanukkah and Dean. And, he's kind of been the steady hand, and he's been a great leader. And so really proud of him, but it's been transformational for sure.
What did you see on tape with the punt blocks? And given how much we've talked about special teams the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, you're disappointed a little bit because you'd say, man, we've been off to such a great start. I don't feel deflated at all by it. It was a matchup challenge that, I think we knew we were going into the game, tried to do some things. We're probably limited a little bit with crowd noise of how much we could do. And you got this freshman punter back there. Boy, you want to kind of try to limit the moving and shaking, and you wanted to give him a steady hand. And, he's phenomenal. What he's done has been, incredible. So I think I leave being we got a great long snapper. We certainly got a great punter. I do really like what we're doing schematically. We just got to be fundamentally a little bit better. Obviously, we've changed from, where we were the last couple of years for purposeful reasons that I think already we benefited positively. Obviously, you can't have the two situations that happen and have to have the ability both within the game to adjust. And I think we will continue to grow from it. So you hate that it happened. You're glad it didn't cost us the game, and you got to be humble enough to learn from it and grow from it, and continue to put some of our best players in great position to affect the game in a positive way.
Coach, you've had 2 games to evaluate Anthony Johnson and his position change. What led you guys to use him in the way you did on Saturday, and what has that change kind of allowed you guys to do?
Well, man, I think very similar to the question on Jared Russ. Anthony Johnson's game, what he's done in 2 football games, if you can just go back and watch him, physicality, elite tackles, the ability to play man-to-man coverage, the ability to do what I don't know if there's anybody playing as good as he is right now in terms of the collective whole on the defensive side of the football. And so, I think the thought process was we felt really good about TJ Tampa. We felt really good about Miles Purchase. We felt really good about Darian Porter. And, obviously we had some growth opportunities at safety. We felt like even watching the video from a year ago, it was like, man, we want to be better and we need to be better at safety. And, I thought that the opportunity to put Ant back there was a huge opportunity for us to solve an area that we felt was maybe a little bit of a weakness a year ago. And, I think what's happened and what's transformed from it is it's allowed us to be totally different on defense, be a lot more multiple in things we've wanted to do. It's given us a guy that can cover, but, man, to be able to cover and tackle the way he tackles, it's really hard to find those guys. And so I think it's been a win-win for him to show what he has the ability to do at a really high level, but equally for us, it's allowed us to be a lot more multiple than we've been in the past.
Hey, Matt, what does the upcoming status kind of look like for Bo? It looked like he got a little banged up late, maybe didn't play as much later in the game.
Yeah, I think Bo was back with us on Sunday. I still think for Bo, man, just more got shaken up than it was any physical injury. And so I think we'll see where he's at, obviously, today. I think, again, there are a couple moments in that game that you're really proud as a head coach of some of the guys stepping up in the moment. And Mason Chambers stepped in and played phenomenal football. Really had a great football game. When Bo got dinged up, Mason got in the game, played outstanding. There was I think I talked a little bit last night about Kendall Jackson's. Man, he's in there for 3 plays, and the one play really changes the entire game. You talk about Aiden Bitter, what he did and his ability to get into the game when Darren Wilson goes down, and next thing you know, Dimitri Stanley's in, and now, man, Aiden's number gets called and stepped up and played big. And even Zach Ross, to start that drive, the 99-yard drive, it's 3rd and 2. We put Zach Ross in at guard, and it's his block that springs the play. So, we talk a lot about being ready for your moment, and I think the one thing you're seeing from our football team is there is more depth that we've had and guys ready to play than maybe we've ever had, and obviously we'll continue to need it because you'll have guys get dinged up in games and those things, and we're going to need depth, and we feel very confident about that part of our football team, at least currently.
On the offensive side, how's X doing? Jalen Noel looked like he got popped pretty good too. Yeah,
I think both of those guys are in a really good spot. Jalen was, back at practice on Sunday as well. I think feel very confident about where he's at. Xavier, I think more exhausted than anything else, and obviously a lot on his plate. So, but ready to rock and roll for sure.
Was this game, as far as just the tough physical play on both sides, was that kind of reminiscent a little bit of Oklahoma State last year? And as maybe the situations are a little different this year, you don't go right back to another conference game right afterwards. But, I mean, it seemed that way to me.
Yeah, I think you're talking. It was an extremely physical game, and I think with the brand of football we want to play, and obviously what our opponent plays is, when those things happen, you're going to come out of a game physically, worn, and yet that's college football, and I think that's the thing for us. I feel like we play that way week in and week out, and I think that's where that depth piece is critical. Playing a lot of people, having guys when guys are dinged up to be ready to play for us. But yeah, probably similar in some ways, except I thought we played a really good game against Oklahoma State last year, and I don't know if I feel like we played it to that level. On Saturday, physically and mentally, yes. Execution, detail, not so much.
What's impressed you the most about Gyrel's first 2 games as a starter?
Yeah, I would say the relentlessness that he has run the football with. I knew he was a relentless player. Now, I kind of joked in the Sunday team meeting, he's a wing T running back, like this single wing offense that he's coming from. And now we're like putting him in space. He thinks he's got these moves. So like, hopefully if you're interviewing him, tell him to run north, quit going east and west. No, I just, Gyrel is one of those guys that I feel like epitomizes our program. And man, he is a guy that has just pounded away at his craft and strained to be ready to help this team. The team means the world to him. He doesn't ever want to disappoint anybody, and he's going to do everything in his power to do what's best for the team to be successful. And so, I really think from his end of it, just the relentlessness that he has been able to affect the game. It's been a joy to watch, just not only the ball carrying, but the blocking, the catching the ball out of the backfield, the detail. And, obviously nobody was more disappointed in the stadium than obviously what happened on the 1 yard line. But for him to come back from that and play the way he did, I do think those are good lessons that we can carry forward from all regards.
And real quick, we touched on it, but how is Remsburg looking for this week, and Cartevius and anyone else maybe?
Yeah. I think, again, I probably could answer that question better after today's practice, other than I would tell you both of those guys were out of practice. Both of those guys are trending right there to being ready to go. And boy, I don't think there would be any greater joy to have those guys ready to play on the field. So I think they're really close. I think Jake was really close by Thursday, Friday last week. We just didn't feel comfortable with where he was on Saturday. Cartevius, I think, was a lot closer yesterday than where he was on Thursday. And I think probably know a lot more today when we get on the football field.
This one's going to be a little bit of a journey, so bear with me.
Okay.
Nebraska fired Scott Frost over the weekend, as I'm sure you saw. It seems to be part of at least a growing or maybe persistent trend in college sports of firing a coach. At least in part, it seems to get ahead of the hiring cycle.
Right.
The Big 12 saw it last year at Tech, TCU. I'm curious what your thoughts are, the impacts of that for both the industry of college football and your profession of college coaching.
Well, we've already talked about my thoughts on the thoughts of college coaching. It's crazy, it is what it is, right? I think I could probably get into this deep at some point, and now maybe not the time, but I just think what's unfortunate is, again, what is it about? It's still about 18 to 22-year-old young people, and it's about serving, caring, loving, guiding these young people through this journey. Now, it so happens that, man, it's watched, and a lot of people want to see your team win, and all those things happen, and people are getting paid a lot of money. I get all those things. But I think one thing that we have lost our way is the impact that it still has on 18 to 22-year-olds. And, whether that's the coaches have lost their way on the impact that they have on 18 to 22-year-olds, our industry has, I think getting those things back in the box and still providing platforms, environments, and cultures that allow young people to grow, that's really got to be our job and responsibility, whether it's an athletic department problem, whether it's a head coach problem. I still think right now what's going on creates a great challenge.
When you talk about that, I'm curious, when you talk with your peers, when you talk about schools doing that, does it potentially have a backfiring effect that when you guys see that they're firing a coach in week 3, that to get out in front of a coaching cycle, that might turn people off that they're potentially pursuing?
Yeah, I think those are things that, I'll be honest with you, I don't even pay attention to, or even haven't even thought about that. I think it's more from our standpoint of, so focused on what I just talked about, creating a culture where your kids, the environment, the coaches are aligned to serving the mission of the players. And so, I think that's always been the focus of any conversation I ever have about, coaching in general. So great question.
In 2015, you're coming at this game from a different angle on Saturday. In 2015, you're at Toledo. You beat Arkansas, ranked Arkansas. What was it like for you guys in practice at Toledo the week before the Arkansas game? And, can you compare that to what Ohio is going through this week?
Yeah, I think, I was really upset when I was at Toledo in 2015 because our first game, Randy, gets rained out, and I had to sit in a locker room until 1 o'clock in the morning before they finally canceled the game, so I was hot. So I wasn't real happy going into Arkansas week, if I can remember back to it, because, game 1 got canceled. All I would say is that conference, the Mid-American Conference, the tradition of that conference, you look at it from top to bottom, and then you talk about the teams like the Toledos of the world, the Ohio Universities of the world, the Miami of Ohio's, the Bowling Greens. those four especially, where they have traditionally just been phenomenal. And you talk about a place where Coach Solich was this legendary head football coach and probably was just this incredible mentor to so many of us young coaches at the time. I'll be really honest with you. I think a lot of people aspired to be him because of how he carried himself. And now you watch, man, he hands over the reins to Coach Albin. This team believes, has played great football really early in the football season. And so I think you look forward to these opportunities because you get to measure yourself, where you are, where your growth is, and knowing that everything you're doing, you have the opportunity to compete in these environments, in these stages. It's awesome. And, their kids believe. I mean, boy, oh boy, you're talking about what I would say is one of the better Mid-American Conference teams I've seen over the last couple of years. Great quarterback, great skill players, really aggressive on the defensive side of the football. And what you'll see is a confident football team that's built to win and beat anybody, no matter what conference or where they're at. And that's college football. I think we saw it last weekend. Anybody can beat anybody any given Saturday. Well, I think you look at this and, who are we to talk? Every game we've played here has been right at the line. I don't think we think we're anybody else other than Iowa State, and it really continues to be about Iowa State for us. So thank you, guys.